February, why are you doing this to me? Dead Shack is a horror comedy directed by Peter Rick. It stars Matthew Nelson Mahood, Gabriel LaBelle, Lizzie Boys, and Donovan Stinson. It tells the story of a teenage boy named Jason who goes on a weekend getaway with his friend's family. And they go to a cabin in the woods where they come across a neighbor who owns a small horde of zombies as pets, and it's up to the teenagers to save themselves and their family. This film just came out recently as a Shudder exclusive, and I was excited to check it out. The premise was intriguing. I really love Shudder, and I love the exclusives they tend to release. It reminded me of a Canadian teen version of Shaun of the Dead. Unfortunately, this film doesn't really work as a horror or a comedy. It tries really hard to be several things: Stranger Things, Evil Dead, Shaun of the Dead, and a little bit of Yoga Hosers for some reason. And instead, it comes out resembling Shaun of the Dead, but with high school drama level acting and a script that feels like it was written by Diablo Cody, but like Jennifer's Body era Diablo Cody.
Hey, Dungeons and Dildos, let's keep moving!
I feel bad saying that because I was really looking forward to checking this movie out, but Dead Shack kind of turned out to be a visually proficient mess. There are two major problems with the movie. First and foremost is that this film doesn't know what it wants to be. It advertises itself as a horror comedy, but it feels like half of the production was unaware of that fact. The script is full of dialogue that could be really funny, and if delivered properly would be really funny, but the delivery is always poor, and the editing makes it really awkward and always ends up making the jokes fall flat. None of the scary or dramatic moments it tries to have work well either, because the characters are all wildly undeveloped and incredibly obnoxious, and it's impossible to care about any of them because they're all just annoying. The second issue is its editing. It's atrocious. Ignoring the fact that it's constantly used throughout the film to cut corners in regards to stunts and effects and gore, it ruins all the humor that could have worked in this film. I'm not saying all the humor in this film could have been funny. Some of them are just dead on arrival. And even if the characters weren't so obnoxious, I think certain lines of dialogue in this film could have been saved if they were delivered properly and handled properly in terms of the editing and the way they were shot. But there are some moments, some lines of dialogue that actually had the potential to work, and the editing completely fucks them over. Because the moment is either cut way too short before you could see anyone's reaction to the stuff that's being said, or inversely, it's dragged out way too long to the point where it starts just feeling really forced and awkward and cringy.
Oh, sorry! Oh, Jesus, I'm sorry! You're gonna be okay, sir. I know first aid.
The acting is bad. It's really bad. It's like high school drama club level bad. Honestly, there isn't a single performance in this film that I would describe as good. And granted, it could just be because the characters are so obnoxious and so, like, annoying. But I feel that if there were more proficient actors delivering some of this dialogue, it could have been at least semi-charming, and instead it's just like nails on a chalkboard at times. Specifically from the main comic relief played by Gabriel LaBelle, because Colin as a character is just the most irritating piece of shit that I've ever seen in a film. You remember how some people were annoyed by T.J. Miller's character in Cloverfield because he never shut the fuck up? Imagine that, but in the body of like a horny teenage boy. That's Colin in this film. The one saving grace of this movie is Donovan Stinson's character, Roger. Pretty much all of the movie's best humor arises from the character's overall ineptitude or the kids trying to protect him in his drunken state. But to be clear, the situation I just described takes up only about 10 minutes of an 81-minute runtime, which brings me to the next problem with this film. This movie decides it wants to be something of a slow burn. Let's ignore the fact that as a horror comedy that doesn't work because in order to function well as a comedy, it would have to be more quick-paced and clever. The film's only 81 minutes long, and it wants to be a slow burn. And as a result, it takes really actually 45 minutes for anything to really happen in this film and for the plot to get moving. It takes 45 minutes of the 81 minutes to get to any of the crazy over-the-top splatter-happy zombie action. None of which is actually in this film. I get what the movie was trying to do, and I respect it. Because at its core, you can tell it wanted to be an homage to The Evil Dead and the over-the-top, quirky horror comedy with a lot of splatter-happy gore. But the problem is, it seems overly restricted by its budget. It ends up feeling more like they tried to make a film that was too ambitious to make, but they went ahead anyway. And as a result, you get a film with acting that's too serious for the tone it's presenting, which ends up resulting in none of the jokes landing. You get editing which ruins the delivery of the jokes by cutting too soon or going on way too long. You get scenes that could be really great splatter-happy moments if any of the action was happening on screen, but it isn't. Instead, they choose to focus on the awkward character interactions while the violence is happening just out of frame. And granted, that could be really funny if people are reacting to it and you're hearing all the carnage and it gets some kind of quirky reaction after the fact. But that never happens, and it ends up just feeling like they didn't shoot enough footage or they're trying to cut corners because they couldn't afford to make it look good. Comedy is pain, but the thing is that all of the pain is happening off screen, so you can't even get a laugh out of it. I'm sad to say this because I really did want to like this movie. I love Shudder, I love their exclusives, I saw a lot of potential in this one, but it really just didn't land for me. I'm gonna say that Dead Shack is poor. The acting was terrible, the writing was obnoxious, the editing was a mess, and probably the worst thing about it is it's not funny. Reviewing a bad comedy is so difficult to do because there's only so many ways you can say, that isn't funny. If you're curious to check it out, I'm not gonna stop you, go ahead and watch it, but if you find the humor in the first 5 minutes of this movie to be cringy, it doesn't get any better than that, I assure you. The first 5 minutes are essentially a litmus test of whether or not you will find the rest of the film any good. It breaks my heart because I honestly thought we were through the worst of February. I thought I was going to finally get to see some good movies this year. And here we are. As always, guys, thank you so much for watching. You can click down there and like and comment and subscribe. This month is going to break me, I swear to God.